Welcome once again to our channel. It's quite a while, but I want to believe we've been blessed all this while. And I want to begin by appreciating those that made comments and our subscribers. It's a sincere prayer that as you encourage us, the Lord will encourage you. Today, by the grace of God, we want to round up what we saw in the message to the churches as in injury time. And as we conclude today, I want us to quickly look at the book of Revelation, chapter 1, verse 18 to 20. In Revelation chapter 1, verse 18 to 20, it reads, I am the living one, I was dead, and behold, I am alive forever. And I hold the keys of death and Hades. Write therefore what you have seen, what is now, and what will take place later. The mystery of the seven stars that you saw in my right hand and of the golden lampstand is this. The seven stars are the angels of the seven churches, and the seven lampstands are the seven churches. Those whom I love, I rebuke and discipline. So be earnest and repent. Here I am, I stand at the door and knocking. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with him, and he with me. To him who overcomes, I will give the right to sit with me on my throne, just as I overcame and sat down with my Father on his throne. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. I pray that we have ears to hear, especially for those that have gone through the series. And for you that have not gone through the series, I'll advise you to please do, because the issues the Lord is raising, even as we'll be rounding up, are issues that have eternal value, especially in the times that we're in. But quickly, as I wrap up the series today, looking at the background, I said this in most of the series, and I'm repeating them today, that the church has a duty to shine and to lighten the world, to ensure that truth prevails. She is to evangelize the world, nurture believers, and help nurse the wounded as she continues to reach out to the unsaved. But very unfortunate today, many churches have deviated from this. Instead of this, instead of nourishing or edifying the sheep, the church today is neck deep in entertaining the goats and milking the cows, while the sheep starves to death or have become prey to the enemy. I pray that is not your story. And I pray that is not the reality about your own local church. Now, I want to say this as I continue, that since last year when we began this series, Mene Mene Tekel, we hope we have been able to cause some preachers or teachers of the word to join us in awakening the brethren as we see the time getting closer by the day. The need for teaching the eschatological gospel of the coming of Jesus Christ in the 21st century cannot be overemphasized, especially looking at the fact that a reality yesterday is prophetic today. Looking at all the churches, you will understand where I'm heading to. As I round up with the background, I want to quickly say understanding these churches and the message of the Lord of the church can help us to understand where we are in the clock of time, especially eschatologically. Now, quickly, as I round up, I'll just run through the churches and then I would do my conclusion. And trust that it's not just about rounding up, but it's about, have you gotten something from the message of the Lord of the churches to the churches? The first church we considered in Revelation 2 1 to 7 is the church in Ephesus. She's described as the Pentecostal church. She is, or the name Ephesus means desirable or purposeful. This church began in the day of Pentecost, and did a lot in combating heretics and heresy. One outstanding character of this church is her effort in scrutinizing evil people and exposing them for who they are. The Nicolaitans, they were seemingly a class of professing Christians who introduced into the church a false freedom or licentiousness, thus abusing the doctrine of grace, as we can see in 2 Peter 2:15 to 19. We probably identi- and were probably identical with those who held the doctrine of Balaam, which we will see in other churches. I'll quickly go to the church in Smyrna, verse 8 to 11. Smyrna means luxuriant perfume, which is usually combined with bitter aloe as an embalming product. This church is said to be the persecuted church. Now, this church has an outstanding quality or character of being a giant in spirit, though she physically was poor. And I think this is the description of some churches. And I think this should be comforting. And it does not matter. You may look small, but if only you persevere in persecution, the Lord sees how big you are and will reward you one day. And I want to say, before I go to the next church, let's stop being politically correct and watering down the truth of the gospel for mundane reason. This will lead to missing the crown of life, like we will see. And I am saying this as in encouraging the church for having had to endure persecution. The next church in verse 12 to 17 of Revelation 2 is the church in Pergamum. This church is said to be the compromising church. I used to say, I pray your church is not like this. And I pray you as an individual is not like this. Because today we see so many compromises. People do it for reasons that are very, very ephemeral. And I pray that the Lord is going to help you. Now, this church, the church in Pergamum, has this as her major weakness. She tolerated Balaam and the Nicolaitans and allowed them to teach in their meetings. I pray that our church today and our church leaders will learn a lesson from this. When we allow some people that we know that have questionable character for ulterior motives to mount our pulpits, either as motivational speakers or as entertainers or as prophets or as miracle wroughers, I think this is not good. And this is one thing the Lord is saying that has been the weakness of this church and is a weakness to many churches. The way the church and our leaders compromise in our doctrine, teaching and practices is disheartening to the Lord, and it makes few that are faithful in some churches begin to feel probably they need to leave because they doubt if the church is really what it professes to be. Now the fourth church, the church in Thyatira, verse 18 to 19. The church in Thyatira is said to be a corrupt church. Is that a description of your church? A corrupt church. And this church's corruption came as a result of 1 Kings 16:31 and Exodus 34:15, allowing Jezebel to occupy a very sensitive position and misleading many into frivolity and unrighteousness. We know who Jezebel is, and I hope to talk about her in the next video and what she stands for. But when we allow her to become a major teacher or an influencer in our church, then I can guarantee you that you will have this same problem. It is time we stop the Jezebelic practices that have permeated our churches today. There is a terrible immorality in the church today, and God is not happy. This is something we see in the message of the churches. With it, I'll be going to the fifth church, the church in Sardis, which is called the dying church. Now, if you look at what has been happening to the second, the third, and the fourth church, you will understand why the church in Sardis will be called the dying church. This church is said to be the dying church, even though she poofs up and claim to be a giant, she's a head knowledge based church. There are lots of ministries today that can tell you they have 50,000 capacity, 100,000 capacity, and they do so much miracle. But by the standard of God, it is going to be unfortunate that some of these churches, he will say, never were in the list of churches that he had on earth. It doesn't matter what we say about ourselves. What matters is what the Lord is saying about us. With this, I'll be going to the sixth church. And I like talking about this church because even based on the testimony of the Lord of the churches, this was the best church and is still the best church. The church in Philadelphia. This church is an evangelical and missionary church. She is an obedient small church. And I think this is going to be an encouragement to a lot of us. There are smaller churches that are coming up now that are very obedient to the Holy Spirit. The Lord knows you. And in small churches like that, you discover there is love for the brotherhood and there is compassion, there is understanding. This is the church that the Lord rated as in the highest. There was no mention weakness to this church. The Lord admonishes this church to hold on to what she already has. There is hardly true brotherly love in most churches today. Instead, there is so much selfishness, tribalism, sectarianism, cliques, and the rest of them. This church turns out to be the best among all the 7 churches. And before I leave out of here, there's a wonderful promise for this church. God promised to bring her enemy under her due to her love for him. There is need, to be intentional in reviving brotherhood or brotherly love in most of our churches. And with this, I'll be going to the last church, the church in Laodicea, the apostate modern church. Look at the name, apostate modern church. Most of us brag with our modern churches. I hope they are not apostate modern church. What describes this apostate church? It is a lukewarm, materialistic, sensual, social type church. Laodicea is said to mean our right. The pillar philosophy of this apostate modern church is our right. This is a church that is not realistic about herself because she says what she is not, she claims what she is not. And here, her major weakness is the fact that she is lukewarm. The church is supposed to be hot in preaching the total gospel, in alerting the brethren of the day of the Lord, which is fast approaching, looking at all that is happening. Now, we need to watch out. When the church becomes too democratic and humanistic, this is a sign of a grave danger. It is deadly when the church becomes apostate to its own original doctrine and practices and resolving to what she calls modernization. In this disguise, the church is now more concerned about us more than about God. Who owns the church? It is in this guise that I want to say God is not happy with these practices and is saying he will soon spew her out. May the Lord not spew you out. And may the Lord not spew you out. The Lord is truly advising us to stop bragging about our achievements which are not recognized by him. We begin to look up to him to make us who we should be, as in verse 17 and 18. In conclusion, it is time we stop the jamboree in church today to prioritize true worship to God. It is time we stop the merchandise that we practice in church today and focus on eternity. It is time we stop the soothsaying and divination that have proliferated our churches in the guise of miracle healing and deliverance crusade. We need to focus on true work with God, which can be challenging as we journey through this sinful world. We must stop the nonsense in the church today and become actively involved in evangelism, discipleship, and alerting the brethren on the nearness of the Lord's return. This is what God expects from us if we are truly looking forward to the King and his kingdom, which is coming soon. For you, child of God, this is what the Lord is saying. There is need for you to come out from among them and be different if you want to escape the judgment that will eventually come for all those that are indulging in this. I pray that the Lord will help you to truly come out and be different and to focus and remain faithful. From us, the men of Issachar, it's a sincere prayer that all of us will be living rapturable lives as we wait. Please, before you leave, do well to press the like button, subscribe if you have not yet done so, and we will continue to appreciate your comments. Thank you. Remain blessed. Shalom.